I'm Catherine Udelhoffen, Program Coordinator for the Center for Norbertine Studies. And with me is Rosemary Sands, Assistant Director of the Center. It is with great pleasure and many, many fond memories that we take this opportunity to introduce our dear friend and director, Father Andrew Ciferni. I didn't think I'd get emotional, but I'm going to miss my Andrew. Father Andrew grew up in a row house in South Philadelphia with blue-collar parents who were born to immigrants from the Italian Abruzzo. Father Andrew first came to St. Norbert College from Pennsylvania in 1961 as a 19-year-old Norbertine frater. As an undergraduate, he commuted from St. Norbert Abbey to the college on the infamous green bus full of other white-habited Norbertines. Father Andrew realized that these years at St. Norbert College uniquely shaped him and the other Norbertines to become the kind of priests they are today. A year later, after graduation, Father Andrew was sent to Rome to study theology at the Gregorian University. Then, a year after that, of teaching at his home community of Daylesford Abbey in Paoli, Pennsylvania, he headed to Notre Dame to pursue a doctorate in theology, specializing in liturgical studies. While there, Father Andrew cut his pastoral teeth as rector of a dorm of 184 young men, among them whom was former SNC history professor Larry McAndrews. Father Andrew returned to Daylesford Abbey, where he was liturgy director from 1974 until '87. He then went to Washington, D.C., where he taught homiletics and liturgy at the Catholic University of America. He later taught liturgy at the Washington Theological Union, where he served as academic dean from '95 to '97. Throughout all of these years, Father Andrew carved out a career as a pastoral liturgist, teaching, writing, lecturing, and serving as a consultant throughout the country and the world. He later returned once again to his home community at Daylesford Abbey. Father Andrew was sure that this would be the last physical move of his life. No such luck.
Even before becoming director of the Center for Norbertine Studies in the fall of 2013, Father Andrew never lost sight of his connection to St. Norbert Abbey or the college. He served on the SNC Board of Trustees from 2002 to 2009, worked with Julie Massey and Paul Waddell in the Lilly Grant-funded Faith, Learning, and Vocation program, was the Hygiene Chair Lecturer in 2002, and received an honorary doctorate from the college in 2003. Father Andrew played a role in the founding of the Center for Norbertine Studies in 2006 and in its significant relocation to the Mulva Library in 2009. He has taught liturgy in the Master of Theological Studies program both in De Pere and in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it was while teaching in New Mexico in June of 2012 that he received the call inviting him to apply for the position of the director of the Center for Norbertine Studies. This post would be vacated a year later when our dear friend and colleague, Dr. William Hyland, the very first director of the CNS, would move to Scotland. Though Father Andrew abhors cold weather, his passion for the Norbertine order and its place in the church drew him back to the college to accept the position as director of the center. Father Andrew has been part of international Norbertine commissions since 1974, originally in liturgy, then spirituality, and is now chair of the Commission for Lay Associates and is a member of the commission rewriting the order's constitutions. I'm thinking maybe he could work on that stability section and change it, perhaps, before he leaves. Since arriving back on campus in fall of 2013, Father Andrew has regularly taught a very popular undergraduate course, Communio and the Norbertines Through the Centuries, both on campus and twice at Monday Abbey in France as a J-term course. Father Andrew is an avid reader across disciplines, but with particular interest in art, architecture, history, Bowen family systems theory, novels recommended by friends whose judgment he trusts, and American Catholic periodicals such as Commonweal, America, and The Tablet. Father Andrew enjoys reading the New York Times and frequently forwards pertinent articles to students and colleagues. Many of you may have been on the receiving end of some of those articles. His current academic focus is on contemplative traditions and mysticism and sports and spirituality. This June, Father Andrew, honoring the Norbertine vow of stability, will return to his home community of Daylesford Abbey and the many dear friends and family he has in the East. Please join us in welcoming Father Andrew this evening as he presents his last lecture.
Really?
I'm not usually nervous, in public speaking, but I realize that as I look out who's here, I'm addressing students, or I'm addressing colleagues, or I'm preaching in this space. And so I'm not quite sure what I'm up to. I feel that I'm rigged like a suicide bomber. But Joel Mann pointed out to me as a philosopher that all I had to say was the last lecture, not really, right? But for those of you who have been here long enough to remember the sacred hour, a lot of people did last lecture, and I always felt that I never had a sense that last lecture, what they were doing was their last lecture. It might have been, their life story or something, and I thought, well, if they ever ask me, I will say, no, I won't do it until it really is my last lecture. But I just had this thought this evening when I did Agape Latte 2 weeks ago. There was an ice storm. And tonight, there's snow, slippery roads, and I have bronchitis. So I thought, well, so I went into a sit, and I thought, all right, maybe God doesn't want me to talk. Secondly, maybe God wants me to only talk to students because they can walk here. Or maybe God doesn't want this to really be my last lecture. All right, so you could just think about that. So what I didn't know quite what to do, mainly because I did Agape Latte, and I'm doing this, and I have been asked to be on the Honors Life Raft, and which I'm not still quite sure what that is. And then I'm the speaker for the academic awards and the presider and preacher for the baccalaureate mass. So I'm trying to keep them separate. All right, and what I thought of was Christopher Wren, the great architect after the London fire, who designed St. Paul's Cathedral. He's buried in the crypt, and in Latin, over his tomb, are the words, "If you seek his monument, look around you." So I thought that one of the things that I have enjoyed the most, this opportunity I've had at St. Norbert College, to be engaged in mission environment. So what you're going to see are the things that I've been lucky enough to have been asked to collaborate on, and on some had a really critical impact. And I'm using that as the skeleton to talk about other things that I think I've done, and maybe where I wish they might go, right? So fasten your seatbelt, and here we go. All right, we're going to see if this works, Griffin. So what is the first thing that I did? I'm not sure these all are in exactly the right critical order, but if you look out through that door, you see the innocuous, insipid color that is around most of the campus, all right? It's either cream chicken soup or bone white. But the first thing I did was bring color into the Center for Norbertine Studies. All right, so there's 3 different colors there. It makes it a much more intimate and interesting room. So moving it from the institutional into something that's more intimate. And so I guess if I would want to follow up on that, I would encourage all of you to paint your space. All right, there's a palette of colors that Sarah Tilke will bring you. It isn't high on, I'm not students, I'm not talking about your rooms, all right? I'm talking about people who have offices or meeting spaces. The maintenance people are in and out, and they do it. It's very low on your budget. All right, so that was probably the first thing. And I do consider that a part of mission environment. But I think this was the big breakthrough. So Father Jay asked me to be on this group with Phil Oswald and Drew Van Fossen. And we have to do something with this space, this big space. And so we had different proposals, and I can't remember if it was in the first year I was here, or the fall of 2013. But what I realized very quickly was that there was this that if I talked about maybe a program that was a little too Catholic, people started to get hives. And so we kind of, went back and forth. And one morning, chanting the Psalms, as we do every day at the Abbey, at least twice a month, we chant the Canticle of Daniel, which is, in the Old Testament, this praise of creation. And interestingly enough, if you study it closely, it kind of corresponds to the way we see creation having developed from the Big Bang right down to Israel, God's promise in Israel. Well, when I brought this, it was like, aha, here we have it. So, all right, then we got to the fact that you don't see it here, but those are Professor Bailey's striped something or others, the birds. But when we get to the end, in Christian use, there's the doxology, glory to the Father, the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. So there we were getting into a little tension again, but we did. We get Albrecht Dürer's image of Christ rising from the dead. I should say before that, if you're familiar with Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, the circle and the square, well, you know that is a completely naked man with his genitals right there in the middle, all right? So what are we going to do about this? So, of course, the first thing was, in this sweep of the rainbow, we're going to put that right over those things. And I said, no, that's what everybody thinks Catholics do. We are going to leave them right there where Leonardo put them, all right? So they're there, all right? So this was part of, this was the first big project that came from the Board of Trustees' commitment to use 1% of any new building for mission environment. And I think it was a test and a great step forward. But what really locked it in was at the dedication, Miriam Mulva, you've heard that name, all right, said, I am so glad that Father Ciferni came up with this idea, all right? So now, in the advancement office, my name is Golden, all right? And so the next project was, this was the other part of that, of the Gail Mulva science part, was Catholic scientists. So these appear outside of the offices on the third floor. They were all Catholic scientists that I did a little work on, but of course, the two most important ones, the one all the way to the far right is Monsignor Georges Lemaitre. He is a Monsignor in Belgium who came up with the Big Bang Theory, all right? So when people are talking about, conflict between science and religion, they should remember that. But most importantly is the man whose image is blown up, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, a Jesuit paleontologist whose works were mostly suppressed during his lifetime, but he was smart enough to give them to people who would publish them later. And he really came to see in his work that evolution was the way God continues to make creation, and that the driving force of evolution is love, defined as energy for agency. So it's not just your Valentine idea of love. Love is energy for agency, to move things forward. And his conclusion was that we had moved beyond the lithosphere and now the biosphere, and now we are conscious agents of evolution. And that is the noosphere, the spirit, the mind, moving towards God's full plan of creation. Now we're going to do just a little musical moment. That's the first verse of the official hymn for Pope Francis's visit to Philadelphia in 2015. I wrote those words. A friend of mine wrote the music. That came out on December, the last day of November or the first day of December in 2014, when going on at the college, some of you may remember, there was a little kerfuffle about Gloria Steinem coming here, all right? This came out just at that point, and I became Mike Counter's poster boy, because in a place like Green Bay, this got an entire page of the Press Gazette. Every television station came, and the one clip that I tried to get, I can't see, nobody can seem to find. One of the companies was walking across the campus, going to Main Hall, and they wanted to get an opinion from some student. And the student came along with his Peruvian hat on, and they said, yeah, do you know Father Ciferni wrote this hymn? And do you know him? This student happened to have been in my first year experience group, and he said, yes, he's one of the most humble people I've ever met. This is the biggest joke in my community, all right? And I'm trying to find that because, I ought to save it forever and just every once in a while throw it up on the screen, all right? So the next thing was, so after having done the main lobby of the Mulva, after that they just let me run on my own. All right, so it was the South Teaching Wing. Give us an idea. I had just worked with Jay and Julie and Howard and another group on the rewriting of the back of the bookmark, right, to make it actually more explicitly scriptural and actually use the name of Jesus and more Trinitarian. So just thinking, I said, well, what's going to be the framework here? So the South Teaching Wing is lines from, or words, phrases from the back of the bookmark with people who might very well exemplify that. So you could see the most dominant one there in the middle is Dorothy Day. To the right is Oscar Romero. To the left is the contemplative element is Thomas Merton. The picture was taken at the national meeting of Norbertine Associates here at the college the last summer. So I think it's an exemplification of the being more intentional about the mission work to really keep on imagining what communio means. I meant to say on the Catholic scientist piece that I think this is a place that is so open and ready and is actually doing the dialogue between science and religion. When we had the Sacred Hour, there was a group of us, David Honeycutt and Eric Brecky and Zach Pratt and myself and Eric Hagedorn and some bio majors. And during the Sacred Hour, we worked through 2 books on science and religion. And I think this is really a very unique and fertile place for doing that dialogue. So then, I've spent a lot of time in Europe. I continue to do that. And so with the idea of connecting the order with its more international place. So that has happened through the heritage tours. I've done 2 global seminars at our Abbey of Monday in France, but also how we are naming buildings that connect with that heritage overseas. So there's the Rogenberg Hall, Doksany, so that is a convent of our contemplative sisters in the Czech Republic, and then St. Joseph's Hall, which of course was St. Joseph's Priory. So there are little ways that we place these names and the little history with them that plug us into this larger vision. And there's lots of places that we can still go with that. I would like to see that one of these days, global seminars or trips even would go to India or Brazil or well, there is a group that have gone to South Africa, but specifically to work with our community in Komaki. But right now, we are, in fact, very much a Eurocentric order, but in fact, our biggest houses are in India. And our house in Mumbai is a huge parish, the school is so successful that it works on, some students are there from 6 in the morning to noon, they leave, and there's a whole new group that come in from noon to 6 o'clock because people so much want to be educated in that place. On that same site is a social center where homeless women are taught to sew. So it's a place that I would really like, I would really like to see us go in the future. This is not a build. These are people. These are very good people. I think one of the things that I'm proudest of is that for 4 years, before every home game on Saturday morning, I gather with the football team for guided meditation. That is a completely voluntary event, but they completely fill these 2 sections. The coaches come, the trainers come, and what I thought was significant is that the coaches suggest to recruits that they come with their parents. So they obviously see that as something that might be a draw for people to come to this place. It has given me the opportunity to work with others from the Emmaus Center and with Tim Bald, who has been very, very supportive on what I would call, this came to me from a friend back in Philadelphia, sports, spirituality, and character development. And we are really working on this. Our goal is to have a chaplain for every team that wishes that. But it also plugs into what has been a whole new area of education for me with Laura Fredrickson in contemplation in higher education. We had an opportunity 2 summers ago to be at Smith College for a week. Every year there's a week-long conference there on contemplation in higher education. I was embarrassed to see that the smallest representation there was Roman Catholics. That this contemplation, which is so much at the heart of our tradition, is not. It is beginning to flourish. It's like a seed that is beginning to bloom. And I think you may see it's at the heart of our college theme next year, and I think you will soon see also some physical, dedicated space for this on campus. Then, one of the things that was a lot of fun, but I will warn you, if Christy Lukens or Reed Regal, this is more for my colleagues, come to you and say, they'll find out where your soft spot is, So, maybe they'll say to Eric, we really like what you're doing with physics, and we think we have a way of really pushing that. Wouldn't you like to do a MOOC? And you say, of course I'd like to do a MOOC, right? Then you find out that within a week you have to have the bibliography, the outline, and every week you have to have it kind of outlined, and you have to meet, and it is a lot of work. And I don't know, maybe it was because it happened in a tight span, but it was enormous fun. It was enormous fun. And we would occasionally, we know at least one person who watched it every week. He is now the president of this college, all right? we would get little, he was amazed at how smart we were. But it was really a tremendous amount of fun, and it gave me a little bit, so now, I had a little bit of, media presence, because I remember I never miss a hockey game unless it's really a home game, unless it's impossible. And it was when the MOOC, when it was all over, when the 5 Tuesdays were over, and I was at the hockey game, and this woman, I didn't have my collar on or my habit, this woman came up and she grabbed my sleeve and she said, are you the guy that did the MOOC? And I said, yes. And she said, it's over and we don't know what to do now on Tuesday night. Well, I don't know, but one MOOC was enough, all right? But I would, if I had a desire that came out of that, it would be that for a more intentional bridging of the gap between the center and the history department and modern languages. We've made some inroads there, but the other is that, and I know that Paul Johnson shares this and others, that we would sooner or later have a full-time classics person who would be able to do the kind of deeper research on the traditions of the Norbertine order. There's another part of my life that happens in this space. From the beginning, I've helped out on Sundays, but my first assignment from my abbot was to be here for 2 years. And in the first year, I said to him, 2 years isn't enough. I really got some things in the fire. Can we say for 3 years? He said, yeah, you can say for 3 years. Then in the third year, the Norbertines of St. Norbert Abbey asked me to become the assistant pastor. So that's what got it to 5 years. We have found no other excuse since then. That has been a really wonderful experience for me. I think that probably when I'm standing there or here on a Sunday morning or a Sunday evening, I have a sense of being my truest self in this place. And I will miss it tremendously. But it also was for a year a time of tension and pressure because of conflicting ideas about the role of this place as a space for campus ministry and whether it should remain as a parish. And it was hard to stay in that because in a certain sense I am a inside outsider because my community is out, though I'm very, very well accepted and treated, but this isn't part of the apostolate of my community. But I felt that it was important enough to stay in there on that and continue to work with it with others until we came to this place where we have the solution of Kevin DeClean as the pastoral administrator. And I think that there is a whole new life that is happening in this place. My gripe has nothing to do with the parish. It has to do with theology and religious studies. And they know this, all right? It is unimaginable to me that a Norbertine college does not have a full-time liturgist and sacramental theologian. Now, they tried. This guy came, he lasted a year, went to Australia. All right? So there are opportunities coming, all right? You are all heard me on record. You may lobby with the Theology and Religious Studies Department and say, we want you to do this for Andrew, all right? They will be so intimidated. All right. Because I see, we have tried this. I don't know how many meetings I have been where we have tried to say, can we bring together music, theology, the parish? It's one of the places, when you study history, people get very interesting names like Vad the Impaler, all right? Or Charles the Bald, or Charles the Fat, or, I want to be Andrew, the destroyer of silos, all right? I think we are the silos are not just out on the farm. They are here. They are silos between disciplines. There are silos between, residence hall and sports and academics. I would love to be the destroyer of silos. And one of my dreams is that someday in the procession for graduation, the coaches are there, the counselors are there, that it is all the people who help to transform you as students. All right? Remember that. Then, Oh, sorry. Yeah, this goes with that. This is the companion piece to the big piece you'll see in a moment. This is beside the pool, and again, it is dancing waters. It's hard to make out completely, but at the top on the left you see a sunburst, and on the right a dove, and if you look carefully down at the middle, there's a fish. There's a fish. And the fish was in the early church a code for Christ, because the ichthos, the first letters of each in Greek, is Jesus Christ, Son of God and Savior. So it is a very abstract representation of the baptism of Jesus in the Jordan, right? So it's a wonderful abstract piece, and the artist did a smaller version of it for the Mulvis. So that I would say that when I was a student here, in those days in the Catholic Church, it is hard to imagine the energy around theology, because the Vatican Council was in session while I was a student. A new theology book would come out, and there'd be a paper in it, and you'd sign your name, and you'd have to read it like in 2 days so that the next person could get it, and we'd be talking about that. And I remember that this experience would be the closest I could have, to the horse, right? The horse, Norbert College horse. It wasn't that kind of conversion, but I was raised in this very, very, very Catholic culture in which to become a priest was, to sort of like be elevated. And I can remember the day where I was in the Abbey Church when it dawned on me that the most important thing that could happen to a human being was being baptized. And that was much, much more important than what later differentiated us by religious profession or ordination or anything else. And so I was glad that I could convince communications. Actually, my relations with communications are wonderful, all right? We have a lot of fun when we talk about these things. They actually listen to me, which is more that happens in my own community. And so this, I'm really very, very happy about this piece, because it gets at this very, very basic call. So, this is the Last Supper, right? But it's not the Last Supper as you would see it if you went to Santa Maria della Grazia in Milan. It is the biggest poster size that I could get of one of the 3 copies made by Leonardo's students on oil, the same size. So it's very, very big. And it was eventually, so it was done around 1495, 1500, and it was eventually bought by a Norbertine Abbey in Belgium. And they still have it. In fact, they've made a whole museum for it. It is one of the best ways to study Leonardo's painting, because that is in such bad condition. So one of the things that, nature abhors a void. I abhor all the empty spaces at St. Norbert College that are just crying out for a piece of art. And one of them is in the Sensenbrenner dining room. And so I brought the poster to Ruth Johnson, and she said, yeah, let's go for it. And so it's just another little place where we can bring through the Norbertines a piece of our larger Catholic mission. When I in the intro, it said that for the last 2 years I was in Washington. I was the academic dean of the Washington Theological Union, a place that has now closed due to financial difficulty. But we did a big renovation of a space that we bought. And I said to the architects, I want the whole place to be a gallery, because there was a Protestant seminary that had a very nice art gallery of religious art. I said, I don't want a little art, I want the whole place. And we did that very, very successfully. And after I left, they did a little gallery called the Ciferni gallery. I don't want a gallery. I would like to see the whole place using art throughout. And we're working on that because it is not only docere verbo et exemplo, it is docere verbo et arte, images through images. And I think I'm going to make it. This is the newest piece. And again, all of these projects are examples of communio because they are done by wonderful teams working together. Laura Treichel, Laura Lear, Nina Rouse, now Jen Christensen, Rosemary Sands. They're really wonderful. Susan Allen, who corrects all our punctuation. And so, we go and we throw out an idea, and they do mock-ups, and we tear up their mock-ups. And so this is in the corridor between Coffin and Bemis. This is going from Coffin towards Bemis. That's the history of the order. And on the other side, starting at the other end, is the history of the college. And down at that end is a flat screen. You do not want to miss this. It'll only take you 3 minutes. You hit the button. There's a green field, and St. Joseph Church rises up, and then Main Hall, and then Boyle, and with the year. Eventually, you get to something like the Science Hall, and that comes up. But later, the Science Hall goes down, and the renovated Science Hall comes up. And in 3 minutes, you just see this. At a certain point, you become a drone, and you go over, and there's the Schneider Stadium, and you come back, and you have this wonderful sense of the growth of the community. So that's all part of that passageway. Then, I know that Adam, my own president gets tired of me talking about the Spike Ball Club, all right? But if you knew the reaction of my friends outside this community, they are stupefied that I would be the president of a spike. They would be stupefied at anything I do in sports, though I believe this is really true, that I attend more home sports events than anybody other than Tim Bald, all right? I would maintain that. Wouldn't you say that's true, Paul? Yeah, so anyway. So that's the Spike Ball Club. There's Joe, Robbie, Sam. I don't know, is that you, Andrew? No, all right. I think that, anyway, it's fun. And we're going to teach the president, all right? We're going to teach the president. So here is our official photo. This is an official photo for the Center for Norbertine Studies and the things that we do. So after the 4 years of doing meditation for the football team, at their banquet, they gave me a helmet and a green blanket with the N letter and my name. Rosemary does all sorts of things with the order in Spain. Alex Gruber, who after the president runs the school, he and the guy in front of him, Luke Manderley, they were my first 2 research fellows. It was an experience. I love these guys so much. They are so different. And so Luke is now studying to be a nurse. I said, you have to come in your scrubs because that says it all. If I say to the 2 of them, office formal, Alex is in his 3-piece suit. Luke is in his T-shirt. All right? But they were wonderful to take to Belgium to do research on one of our abbeys that's mission in Canada. And then this guy on the lower left who looks like he's in the 8th grade, this is Ben Jurdy. And last year, his research project was on laïcité, the French separation of church and state. And this year, he's holding a globe of this heavens. You have to wait for the March Collaborative Research to see the incredible discovery we have made of a manuscript very important in the history of the order. And he's going to present that. And Catherine, she has the map of Europe, because she's been to every city in Europe. No, but she plans the heritage tours, which is a lot of work. And yeah, and me, I do sports. But I take this is probably the biggest section, because Tom Kunkel said that one of the most important books that he read after he came here, it was a book recommended to him by David. The book is by David Richo, 5 Things in Life You Cannot Change, and by accepting them, they will make you happy, right? And one of them is, things do not always go according to plan. I came here thinking that I was finally going to do German footnotes, you know, all that heavy research, or translations, etc. And I should have known already that though I believe I have the capacity for that, I do not have the personality for it, all right? It is very hard for me to stay alone in my room or in my office with a lot of books. I like to read that stuff. I think it's very important. I think I bring it into my teaching. But the point is that even if I did, the center is within mission and student affairs. So even though I might be very interested in doing a comparative study of Vita A and Vita B of St. Norbert's, I am in meetings telling me where the heart defibrillators are, or Title IX, or what order are the students going to pick their rooms in next year, all right? And so, you know, you go with the flow. It's hard for me to keep my mouth shut if I think I have something to say. And so, for example, that is what eventually got me into the subcommittee on gender and sexuality, on safe ally training, in Gateway. And I've loved it, and I think I've made some contribution in those places. But in fact, we have done, I think, what is the more specific, you know, Norbertine work in the global seminars, in the Humanities 337, which I would love to go on teaching for the rest of my life, because I think I have learned so much there about the rule of Augustine, especially from athletes where Augustine is saying the way you may know you're making progress is when you put the community before yourself. I think athletes on team sports get that better than anybody else except the military, right? Religious do not, right? Or they have to work much harder at it. So, but we have the global seminar, we have Humanities 337, we have this wonderful gift that has come to us of old books, doubles from our Abbey in Tongerlo. So I think we've done a lot of work in acquisitions. I know that because we've got a lot more shelves than when I came here. I think that I sometimes think my department is the library, right? I think of the library as that's my department. But when I think of where I think maybe I do the most regular work, or where I've made I think the east side of 3rd Street, right? Admissions, communications, parents, and alumni. So I am very happy to be trotted out every time, you know, tell these people what communio it is, what it means to be at a Norbertine College. I loved going 2 years to Brewer Stadium to, you know, try to reel in the folks from the Milwaukee area, to address the trustee scholars groups, and to talk with their parents. And I think I am a very good salesman for St. Norbert College. And I'm very, very happy about that. The Augustine lectures and the pizza talks and what has come out of that on the Norbertine Pedagogy Project. So I'm not quite sure where that's going to go, since the first string quarterback and the second string quarterback are both leaving. But I think we've got it moving with faculty, and where, again, on March 23rd, we're doing a faculty development that is not just faculty, it's residence hall life, and it's coaches, and we look together how transformation is happening in all of these places, as that they are not in silos. So this is, I have in my own mind that this is under communio, because I could not do these things without Catherine and Rosemary, believe me. Any of you for which I have written a letter of recommendation, if it is on official stationery, it is because it has gone as a document to Catherine. I still do not know how to put a letter on official stationery. And why should I learn? All right? I'll bring another piece back on that. And finally, the last, I think this is the last image, is Perichoresis. So this was, again, it's hard to see in this is a very Teilhardian piece of work. It's Perichoresis is the Greek word that the fathers of the church how they talked about the Trinity as a circle dance of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in mutual, equal, and interdependent love. And because love is always diffusive of itself, it is God's body is the creation we are living. And so that arc that goes from the bright in the left to the right, where there is it's harder to see on here, the red of the incarnation, and that arc is coming back, and it's going and going and coming back and going and coming back, and it's headed toward this omega point, that we are now the conscious movers of evolution. So this was a really great piece. So finally, I have 3 minutes. My departure. We say docere verbo et exemplo. So we have to teach by word and example. Anybody who has had Humanities 337 knows that in the Val formula, I, Andrew Ciferni, offering give myself to the Church of Our Lady of Daylesford in Paoli, Pennsylvania. That is my stability. I am on loan here. So despite President Brees, I have to take that seriously, all right? And to teach, so to teach by example by returning to that community, which I really am looking forward to returning to. I don't want people to think that, some abbot out there has put a gun to my head. What you might be perceiving is my sadness in leaving you. But I really have to return there. However, there is another point that makes it absolutely necessary. The day before I returned home for Christmas, my 98-year-old mother fell and cracked her hip. She has 4 sons. I'm here. The next one's in North Carolina. Next one's in Florida. And the last one is in Texas. They're all married. They say to me indirectly, you don't have anything to do. So that happens in religious life. And I want to be with my mother. I will be with her next week on the break. And so that really is important. You may know that if you came to Agape Latte, what I took as the theme there is, this is a recurring pattern in my life of getting deeply enrooted in places because of people and then having to leave. The only one that was as hard as this is when I left this dorm of 184 men after 3 years at Notre Dame. Somebody asked me at Agape Latte, why is it so hard to leave a place? And I said, it is hard to leave a place because of the people in that place. So I have this quote from Thomas Merton. Do not depend on the hope of results. You may have to face the fact that your work will be apparently worthless and even achieve no result at all, if not perhaps results opposite to what you expect. As you get used to this idea, you start more and more to concentrate not on the results, but on the value, the rightness, the truth of the work itself. You gradually struggle less and less for an idea and more for specific people. In the end, it is the reality of personal relationship that saves everything. Thomas Merton. What is seen only by Catherine and Rosemary is the scheduling of students and adults that I am privileged to coach one-on-one. I wish I had come up with this phrase. I used it in Agape Latte, but it came from a friend at Villanova. They do not care what you know. They want to know that you care. You gradually struggle, less and less for an idea, and more for specific people. In the end, it is the reality of personal relationship that saves everything. When I left Daylesford Abbey, just 1 minute because I have 27 seconds left. someone left me with this poem, and I do want to read it. You have it to take home. I would prefer you not read it while this is like, you don't go to Shakespeare, you don't go to a play and read Shakespeare as it's happening, right? I want you to have it to take with you, because you will probably have some place to use it in your life. I've walked through many lives, some of them my own, and I am not who I was, though some principle of being abides from which I struggle not to stray. When I look behind, as I am compelled to look, before I can gather strength to proceed on my journey, I see the milestones dwindling toward the horizon and the slow fires trailing from the abandoned campsites over which scavenger angels wheel on heavy wings. Oh, I have made myself a tribe out of my true affections, and my tribe is scattered. How shall the heart be reconciled to its feast of losses? In a rising wind, the manic dust of my friends, those who fell along the way, bitterly stings my face. Yet I turn, exulting somewhat, with my will intact to go wherever I need to go, and every stone on the road precious to me. In my darkest night, when the moon was covered and I roamed through wreckage, a nimbus-colored voice directed me, live in the layers, not on the litter. Though I lack the art to decipher it, no doubt, the next chapter in my book of transformations is already written. I am not done with my changes. Thank you. I don't know if there are any questions. There is a reception, right? Yes, good. Any questions or? Good. All right. Oh.
Have you tried playing spike ball?
No, I have not tried playing spike ball. I believe that though I am in disgustingly good health for a man of 76, I should not risk it. All right? I am there to encourage them to bind their wounds should they get hurt, bring water, adult beverages if appropriate, but, all right? No, you didn't hear that. All right, good. No, I have not tried to play spike ball. I thought when I first watched it on Google, because I get this message from Toledo, Spain, will you be the spike ball advisor? Well, from this particular student, if he asked me to stand on my head, I would probably do it, all right? I said, of course, not knowing what it was. So then I watched it and I thought, oh, this looked easy. And then I actually watched them play, and I saw how many people couldn't do it well, and I saw the ones who could, all right? So I thought, no, I'm not playing spike ball. Anybody else? All right, we'll see you out there. Thank you again.